Fields of Mystria is fine. The music is nowhere near as good as Stardew Valley's music.
And that's one of the best parts of Stardew.
Also with Cookie Clicker, I think we've talked a lot about like how the Balatro theme is like endlessly replayable. The Cookie Clicker theme is done by like another like electronic ambient artist, and it's incredible. Like it is it's an 8-minute long loop. I went and like sought it out, and I was like, yeah, this is I would listen to this all the time.
Yeah,
it's great.
Hey everybody, welcome to Pursuing Pixels. My name's Kevin Portelli, and I'm here tonight with John Hines.
Hey there.
And it's just the two of us this week for our first full-length episode of the new year here. I guess happy 2025, if you want to call it that. But nonetheless,
I think everybody's calling it that, yes.
But yeah, there's always some good video games to talk about. Although I will say with like the holidays and stuff, I've been pretty busy. Although I've been like firing up a ton of games, but just like I got a few games for Christmas, physical copies, and then got some gift cards. So I scooped up a bunch of random games. And because of that, I've had like my crippling indecisiveness of like, oh, let me play this and admire the title screen for a few minutes. And let me play this and play it for, 5 minutes and play the tutorial, or, just mess with the settings or see if I might want to make a video for this game or whatever. So yeah, I've just been kind of like bouncing around, and so I figured I'd do kind of like almost like a save it for the cast intro style, potpourri of games here. And I guess the first game I wanted to give a shout out to is this game called Marsupilami Hoobaventure. And we were just talking about this before we hopped on the call. I didn't even realize this when I picked up the game. I knew that it was based on some kind of cartoon, but I assumed that it was like some new like Nickelodeon kids cartoon. But we were looking it up, and John's like, oh, isn't that old like French 80s cartoon or whatever? And I was like, oh yeah, I remember this character. And really the game, like, it kind of looks like that character. Like now that I know that, I'm like, oh yeah,
it super
like
does it.
You're basically like this kind of like leopard looking cat with like a really, really long tail. That's like the main gimmick that almost feels like a little bit like silly when you're playing, even in the game. Like you're just like running around and you have this huge tail like flying behind you. It just feels a little bit almost ludicrous, but whatever. That is what the character is. And to be fair, that is in some of the mechanics in the game. And like this is basically like a 2.5D platformer that is like almost to a fault, rocking the Donkey Kong Country Returns, Tropical Freeze gameplay and art style, although they're throwing like their own elements into the mix as far as gameplay goes, like that you have that really long tail. So what I was about to say a second ago is like you can use that tail to like grab different like rings and various things in like the level to kind of like almost like grapple to, if you will, or like latch onto and hold on to until you jump off of them. So they add like some kind of puzzle platforming elements into the mix, but I've played through like about the whole first world. I haven't played the boss battle, assuming there is one, or whatever the final stage of the world is yet. But like just playing through the opening bits of this game, and I mean, again, it's like very much wearing its influences on its sleeve. But it's normally like a $20 or $30 game. It was on sale for $2, and I was like, okay, this, even if it's just a small dose of that Donkey Kong Country, gameplay that I love, and something, new and fresh, like I'll give it a try. Even if it is kind of, doing more of the same, but it's like, it is more of the same, but it is kind of, it's really fun. I like, it's a little bit slower paced than Donkey Kong Country, although you're a little weighty in those games as well. But you can also like, you don't have a run button, but you can like rapidly tap on the Y button to do like a roll, just like in Donkey Kong, I guess, but you can just keep like kind of rolling infinitely and like mow down different grass and stuff like that. But just the way they like kind of path out the levels. The reason I actually scooped this up, apart from it being on sale for $2, is the fact that I looked up on like a Reddit thread or wherever it was, that I looked up just some like user reviews, because I really couldn't find much about this game at all. But people were saying on the Steam reviews and whatnot as well that they really loved like the level design, and just like everything about the game. Maybe it was the Steam reviews actually, and not so much a Reddit thread, but just like a lot of people had really high reviews from the user scores. And I was like, you know what? I'm buying it with a gift card, and it's only $2, so I can hardly complain about that. And I'm really having a lot of fun with this one, and I'm fully planning on beating this game like seeing it through to the end. I'm really having a lot of fun. Like I said, I'm about all the way through the first world with maybe another level or two to go. And I think there's maybe 3 or 4 worlds. There's 3 different characters that you can cycle between. They all seem pretty much the same. I didn't notice any difference. The other thing that I saw in the Steam reviews too is that people were just saying that it's a little bit easy, but you can crank it up to like the hard mode, which is only 2 hit points instead of 3. Which still, I don't know if I died at all, but I definitely like had moments where I was like, they could give you a lot of health. So it does seem like it's a little tough to die, but like to find I think there's like 5 hidden collectibles on each stage, and like to find all those, like they're really cleverly hidden and like, but not in a frustrating way where like, in like some of I've complained before on the podcast about like the new Super Mario Brothers games, like let's go up to the ghost house and slide against every fucking wall in the level so that we can see where the invisible one is. Like that's not fun to me in any way, shape, or form. Where like even if you can just be like a little more observant and like, oh hey, there's a little crack right here, or hey, this looks a little different than it normally does. Like that's all it takes to just be like make it a little more engaging and not frustrating. But yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with this one. The music's like solid. Like everything about it is just solid. I'm not going to like go out and be like, you got to get this game. But like, if you like Donkey Kong Country, you know, I know the Returns HD is actually just about to come out on Switch here as we record this here. But which I'm tempted to get because they're adding those 3D. They added that one new world of levels on 3DS.
Yeah.
And that's going to have those on there. But I'm like, it is just like the same exact game. And it really doesn't look all that. I looked at some comparison videos. It's like,
weren't you lukewarm on revisiting it?
On Tropical Freeze, actually, I was. But it's been a while since I've gone back to Returns. And I still like Tropical Freeze a lot. Yeah. But yeah, I that's one thing I'll say is like one of the complaints I have about like Donkey Kong Country Returns and Tropical Freeze is like it does kind of have a little more of like you don't have to do these things, but it's like if you are trying to like find all the goodies and stuff, it is a little more stop and go gameplay, like especially in Returns, like, oh, let me duck and blow on this dandelion every 5 seconds. Like it gets a little bit annoying where this game doesn't seem to, Marsupilami doesn't really seem to have much of that at all. Like the collectibles are just like well hidden, but there's not like all these like kind of extra secondary collectibles. So it's kind of, I don't know. Yeah. I like how like streamlined it is. I'm having a lot of fun with it. And then I just wanted to mention a couple other shoot 'em ups that I've been playing. This game, I actually picked up a physical copy of this because I had an Amazon gift card, and I was like, you know what? I loved this game. It was in the one of the Itch.io charity bundles, if not many of them. That I've scooped up over the years. So I was like, you know what? They've been generous enough to give this game out basically for free in these massive, charity collections on Itch.io. And I can't remember if I said the name of the game or not, but it's called Risk System. And I think I talked about this game maybe even in the early days of the podcast. If I didn't,
very
I definitely
early days.
Okay, nice. Do you remember this one at all?
I remember you talking about it maybe even recently, but I checked back on the spreadsheet and you just mentioned it in like the second year of the podcast.
Yeah, I wonder if I maybe just mentioned that I scooped it up or something on a recent saver for the cast, but I really, after playing Drainus, which I think we're going to talk about in a upcoming episode, we were planning on talking about it tonight, but Randall wasn't able to join us, and we've all been playing that and some other Team Ladybug stuff as well. So let's table that for later. But I was like, you know what? I've been on a pretty big shoot 'em up kick lately. Not that I'm really good at these games at all, but the cool thing about this game, it's number one, it's just got like a little bit more, just like Drainus, like just a little element of a story. These little cutscenes with like dialogue between like one character and another, like at the beginning of a stage or right before a boss battle, like just enough flavor, nothing to bog anything down, but still very arcadey and everything. But like, it just adds a little more incentive to other than just like, oh, let me fire up another run of this mindless, shoot 'em up game. So I've really loved that. It's got some really great pixel art that feels like very like Dreamcast era, I would say. Maybe Sega Saturn, maybe somewhere in between there. But it feels a little more souped up than Sega Saturn. But again, I just really love the pixel art, and the main gimmick here is like in many shoot 'em ups or bullet hell shoot 'em ups where you're like they have that graze mechanic where you're trying to get as close as you can to the bullets or projectiles to like charge up something or do whatever. So basically, in this game, anytime you're as close as you can be to enemy fire, it's going to charge up your regular shot. Your regular just like fire is going to be more powerful. But at the same time, it's also charging up I think it's called like your breaker meter or something like that. Which as soon as you fill that up, you do like this massive damage attack. And then on top of that, you're invincible for a few seconds. So like it gets to the point where maybe not a few seconds, maybe 1 second or something like that. But it feels like a good amount of time. But you get to the point where like in this, for example, the second boss battle in the game, like you're getting to these points where they're like firing these laser beams at you left and right that you can't dodge. Like you're going to get hit by them. So you have to like get right up close to them, charge up your breaker meter or whatever all the way so that you can become invulnerable for a second, do a ton of damage to the boss at the same time, but also like burst through this, impenetrable laser beam that you wouldn't be able to pass without taking damage otherwise. And then that also, I keep calling it a breaker. It might be called something else, but whatever it is, you're able to like attack enemies that are like in the background as well. Like sometimes there's like an enemy that's doing like kind of like sniping you, that you're not able to attack with your regular fire. But if you charge up your, meter all the way and then do your like mega attack, you can take them out. And then, okay, now I don't have to worry about that threat like sniping me. Because the other main mechanic is you have two separate buttons, one for barrel, doing a barrel roll like upwards, and then one for doing a barrel roll downwards. And I think you can change those controls like pretty much any way you like. But I really like that just like kind of simplistic gameplay, while also like adding just a little bit of that story element to the mix. I love the pixel art. I love the music, like just like Drainus, like it's just slamming like that Dreamcast era, like just really driving the energy. But it's just really tough without being too brutal. Like, sometimes I fire up these bullet hells and I'm like, I don't even have a chance. Where this is like, I'm firing it up and I'm like, okay, I can beat a level or two. And I think there's even like pretty solid checkpoints. Like, yeah, I think if you make it to a boss, you're just starting right up from that, same point. Obviously, if you're worried about score chasing or anything like that, it's not going to do much for you there. But, yeah, I'm just like having an absolute blast with that game. Like as soon as I got it, like the physical copy looks really nice. Like it's even got like it doesn't have a manual, but it's got like a certificate of like authenticity of like, hey, this is like a real copy of this game. And it's like, I don't know. It just feels just like with Drainus. Like maybe it adds a little extra element to like being able to pop the cartridge in and like, okay, I'm playing like this story driven game and it's like this physical copy that I have. Like, I don't know, maybe that's adding a little bit of extra, juice to it for me or something like that. But yeah, having a lot of fun with that one. And then another shoot 'em up that I finally scooped up. I like never see this game go on sale. It's been on my wish list forever. And it's not that it's that expensive or anything, but it's $15 normally. It went on sale for half off around the holidays. So I was like, okay, I'm finally going to buy Rival Megagun. And this is like, if you've ever played Twinkle Star Sprites, I think is the name of the game that I'm thinking of. It's like basically like a 2-player, you can play it 1-player, but it's like a versus shoot 'em up where if you're playing 1-player, you're playing on the left side of the screen and then your opponent's on the right side of the screen. And you're basically just like firing up. I've played other games like this as well. And Twinkle Star Sprites like has like a little bit more of like a puzzle element to it, I think, if I remember correctly. Like if you shoot enemies of like the same color or type or something, like it adds to the like attack power. And I don't think there's anything like that going on here. Like you're just basically like enemies are popping up. It's a vertically scrolling shoot 'em up as opposed to Risk System, which is scrolling horizontally. But yeah, the screen just split in half. But the cool thing here is that like just like in Risk System as well, you're like trying to fill up this like main meter is like your not your main objective, but that's like your main like kind of power up, and you can use that anytime you want to like you can kind of charge it up and like send like I think there's 6 different characters that all have different like fire types, like their regular fire, and then they're like secondary, like it's not a bomb, but like basically, yeah, as you fill this meter up, you can like hold down a button to like drain it you can hold it down as long as you want or as much as you have it filled up to drain it to a point, and then it'll like send enemy attacks or send your attacks of your specialty for your character over to the other side of the screen to like attack your opponent. But then the like kind of risk reward here is that if you wait long enough and instead of using it too much and like let your meter fill all the way up, you can actually like transform into like a boss that will like go to the other side of the player's screen. And so now instead of being on the bottom of your side of the screen, you're at the top of your opponent's screen and you're like controlling, this like giant like Megazord style character.
Sick.
That every face button is a different attack.
Yeah.
The shoulder buttons all do something different as well. Or they maybe let you do more precise aiming or something like that. I'm still like kind of getting the hang of things here. And it's definitely, pardon me, I got a little frog in my throat here today. But it's definitely a game that's like it's meant to be played. Like I really want to play it with some friends. Like I really want to play a couch, and it does have online play. I have no idea how the servers are. I'm assuming this game came out about 5 or 6 years ago now, so I'm assuming you're going to be hard pressed to find anybody randomly playing online. But maybe if if me and you both own the game and we both say, hey, let's hop on and play, maybe it would work still. But I don't know how much online luck you're going to have with this game. But I do think, like, again, I'd love to play this with either you or Randall or DJ or just anyone who likes a good arcade shoot 'em up. Because it's just really simple, straightforward. There's just 2 buttons. And then obviously all the face buttons once you transform into a boss. But at that point, you're almost like just button mashing. You can get a little strategic with it, but it's cool. There's like kind of like they call it the arcade mode, but that's almost like a little bit of a story campaign. Like each character has their own like kind of arc that they play through. And there's like, it's almost plays out like a game show kind of like, it's like, oh, you're trying to escape the earth as it's exploding. And there's like a host and it's like, oh, who's our contestant? Who's going to be the last one to survive I can't remember if it's even to save the earth or to just escape or whatever the main thing is of the story. I was like half paying attention to it, but I got pretty sucked into it. I played through like all the way through one of the characters' story arcs, and you just have to like beat all the other different characters, and then you actually square off against the host at the very end of the game. So it's just got like a cool, like quirky, colorful comic book style. I don't know. I like it a lot. It's got some janky moments as well. Like some of the cutscenes, like just feel a little bit janky at times, but that kind of almost adds to the charm, I feel. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I could rattle off a few other games. Like I finally scooped up Kingdom 80s, but I haven't really played enough of it. It feels like a fresh enough take though. So I'm excited to dig into some more of that, and picked up a physical copy of Gravity Circuit, but I haven't really played any more of that than what I've talked about in the past. So I'll wait until I play maybe a little bit more of that one. But I will say about Gravity Circuit, man, of all the physical copies I've scooped up recently, like that's the one I'm like most proud to just like add to that Switch collection. Like that is an awesome game that feels like very much like a full blown, like AAA game of the 16-bit era, if that makes sense. Like, obviously it's more souped up than that and widescreen and this and that, but like it definitely feels like, man, this feels like if I would have bought this in a retro, this would have like blown my mind.
100%.
It feels like that scope of a game, I guess. But yeah, just really having a lot of fun just bouncing around, but I am looking forward to like sinking my teeth. I got my PS4 all hooked up. I'm ready to dive into Uncharted 4 like bright and early here.
Nice.
Getting to my resolution game along with some other stuff that I kind of forgot that I even had. But yeah, I think I'll leave it there for now and kick it over to John for a little. I don't really even know exactly what you're going to talk about here, but I know it's just some Bethesda themed chit chat here.
Yeah, we stockpiled a good amount of episodes from like before the holidays, which I took as an opportunity to just play one game for like a month straight, or at least that's what like my goal was right at the beginning. And so what I actually started off with was I started playing Elder Scrolls Oblivion, which was one of the titles I had never played. I tried playing Morrowind on Steam Deck, but that like playing that with a controller just doesn't like. There's a lot of finickiness to it, and even Oblivion, I think I ended up naming my character either like a blank space or just the letter E because I couldn't figure out how to like pull up the keyboard options on the Steam Deck, like, which is weird because I'm pretty sure that Oblivion had like an Xbox 360 port.
Yeah,
that, like,
definitely. I was just listening to a podcast talking about it earlier today.
Yeah, so like they have a full controller layout, but for whatever reason I'm using some janky like custom version that, what right mouse click is mapped to something and left mouse click is mapped to another, like, but it still works really well. And I was amazed at how much easier Oblivion was than Morrowind, but also like how close it was to Skyrim. And that's the other thing that, like, updating the spreadsheet for the podcast, I think it is unbelievable how little I have talked about Skyrim on this podcast, because it is a game I have probably played more than almost any other game. Like, I have just put hundreds and hundreds of hours into Skyrim on so many different platforms. I first played it on Xbox 360, and then I got it on, I think, Steam, and like played it on a computer. And then after that, I bought it on Switch. The reason why they keep remaking or re-releasing Skyrim is because of me. I'm the consumer who keeps buying Skyrim. I am at fault here. Like, but it is one of my favorite games, and like, it's a comfort game. I've played it so many different times, and to the extent that like, I know all of the systems and I know how they like interact with each other. So even though it is this huge open world game, it is kind of a solved game in my brain. And like, whereas like, I know how to level up in every skill, like the most optimal way. I know like the like routes that you go to, like most efficiently manage your skills and manage your inventory. And like, when should I get out of a dungeon to sell all of my like goodies that I found? And then how do I turn those into crafting? Like all the synergies with all of the like skills and leveling system, just like I have it memorized for that entire game. And playing Oblivion was fascinating because it was so like, Morrowind was confusing. Like, it was, I think, just a little bit too far from what I like was comfortable with in Skyrim. And so like, moving over to Oblivion, which was just one game removed,
like splitting the difference.
Yeah. And like,
and you've never played Morrowind or Elder Scrolls or Oblivion before this?
No, this was my first time with both of those. Well, Morrowind was I played that like a year or two ago and bounced off it because I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on that too. I played the Xbox, not 360, the Xbox version of that, and I was just like, "What is going on?" I was like, "I don't think this is meant to run on this platform."
And like, that's the thing, is like, Morrowind seems the most interesting thematically.
Same. I was like, I like the idea of the world, even the box like screenshots. I was like, this looks cool.
Yeah, but starting off in Oblivion and having it kind of like start right from this, like the opening scenes of Oblivion felt like as iconic as the opening scenes of Skyrim, where it's like, yes, like this is setting the tone for this game. And like, I was immediately bought in, and like started learning the nuances. Is like, okay, how does leveling work in this game compared to Skyrim? And like, they do different things and they have different soft caps. Like, as soon as like I mentioned, like I was going on, either subreddit or like I think the Range Touch Discord, and like talking about Oblivion, and immediately people were like, all right, be careful you don't soft lock yourself in content by over leveling like specific things, because like the game scales in difficulty in a weird way. And like,
weird.
On one hand, things like that could seem obtuse and off-putting, but like, it was so close to something that was very familiar to me and like felt familiar enough that I was like, no, I can embrace that jank. Like, I could totally, that just sounds like a fun little wrinkle to it. Like learning the quirks of a leveling system in a Bethesda game. Yeah. And like, that then kind of spiraled into me thinking again about Fallout New Vegas, which was a game that I started and then almost immediately like started running up against like what the expansion was as a increased difficulty of Fallout 3. Like, it kind of was a hard mode in like, it introduced thirst levels. It introduced like all of the ammo now had weight that you had to like think about in terms of like your carrying capacity.
It's almost like I add like a survival element to the game a little bit.
And like, that was something that I wanted to engage with. You can turn that off when you play New Vegas, but I was like, no, like, I know that this is part of what makes this game, but like, it was very difficult for someone who had not played Fallout 3. And then I remembered like my grade school friend to like, I think showing me the opening scene of Fallout 3. And I was like, oh my God, I think I did play like at least the intro section. And I went and I booted up Fallout 3 after like playing Oblivion. And like, for some reason I was just in the Bethesda headspace where I was like, all right, I think I can figure out like how like I need to level up skills efficiently. And like, if I get into a new encounter, like I think the thing that I didn't get about Fallout 3 specifically is that it kind of does play like a turn-based strategy game or like RPG at some points, because it has the VATS system, which is like a bullet time thing.
Yeah, I remember playing like I don't know if I played the demo of that game or if it was if it came out when I worked at Best Buy and they like had it at the kiosk and I played it or something. But I vividly remember like being able to like target like the different parts of like the body, and like like when you're like sniping or something. And
that felt awkward to me at first until like I realized that I was kind of already doing that when I play Skyrim and when I play Oblivion now, is that there is a certain point of how I approach dungeons and levels and like leveling up skills where I will get to a point where I need to basically pause and enter the menu after every action that I do, because I'm fighting an enemy that will kill me if it gets 2 clean hits on me. So like I will get into a system that's like, all right, I have enough magic to cast 1 spell. So I'm going to cast that spell. And then as soon as it's done, I'm going to pause the menu, select a like potion to either regenerate my magic or regenerate my health, or I'm going to switch weapons on the fly. So now I'm fighting a melee thing. And once I run out of stamina, I'm going to cycle back into magic, and I'm turning like this single engagement in what is like ostensibly an action RPG that you're supposed to be playing in real time. But like, for whatever reason, I'm approaching it in more of like a beat by beat, RPG fashion. And then like realizing that that's kind of what I'm doing in Fallout, but like actually mechanized in the systems of the game.
Right.
And I was like, oh yeah, like this is how Bethesda games kind of work for me. Like they kind of are very similar, even though they do focus on like completely different things. And like, it's fascinating to like, I've been bouncing around between them. I briefly played Elder Scrolls Online, but like that had removed the like RPG elements of it that I really liked entirely, with like MMORPG cooldowns, where it was just like you do an attack and then that like takes a second before you can do that attack again. And I was like, this is not what I come to these games for. Like it is similar, and it is, you're seeing all of the like places that haven't been done in a good 3D game in decades. And it's cool that you can go to Hammerfell and like, even Cyrodiil, like, because Oblivion, like, I think Oblivion looks beautiful, but I could absolutely see someone looking at this as like, can you believe people thought this looked good at some point in time? It's like,
I'd have to look at it again, because I don't really remember. I remember it like from that era, but I never played it and only saw people play it, or same thing as it came out when I worked at Best Buy or around that time. So I remember seeing it on the demos and stuff like that. But
I think also
don't
like,
have much.
Skyrim is so drab and like so gray, and like part of that is, it's a lot easier to work with really complex textures and weather systems if like, you're not working with this unbelievable palette. But like just playing Oblivion and being like, it's so bright, like everything's so green and like lush, and like it's really refreshing. And even though they're dealing with probably 1/10 of the textures that Skyrim is working with. But I don't know, like the more I play Oblivion, the more I'm interacting with its quirks and getting used to them. And like realizing that I was like, man, I really prefer alchemy in Oblivion compared to Skyrim, and that was one of my favorite parts of Skyrim. And I was like,
okay,
the cycle that I find fulfilling in those games is less of like an active combat role and more of like engaging in like speechcraft and merchants and like, okay, I'm going to collect all of these like regents to create potions and the alchemy system, and then I'm going to sell them so that I have more money than God, and then I can just buy anything that I want. And like, it's I really like how expansive those games are, and they do allow you to do a lot of different things, even though it's like, you know, you're doing maybe 5 different ways of moving through the game, but those 5 different ways do feel different. And I don't know, I think they're great, and I've been having a ball, and I can't wait to be good enough at Fallout that I can play New Vegas. And once I reach that level of competency, like I know I'm gonna just fall in love with that game, because I was falling pretty hard, like just from the opening sections. It was just I was not good enough and didn't have enough familiarity with the systems to get
with the series.
Far.
Yeah. Would you say you have, like, of all the Bethesda stuff that you've been firing up recently, would you say you have a favorite, or I mean, not a favorite necessarily, but one that's been standing out of the bunch? Is it Oblivion or?
It is Oblivion, but like I think I've been playing Fallout 3 more because I feel like there's more that I have unknown in Fallout as a series, whereas
more to like discover.
Yeah, like their entire like, I really don't understand how science works. I really don't understand how like that's like hacking in computers, and like I think it's a word puzzle game, and I'm doing my best not to like just go down wiki holes and like figure out, like, because these games are solved. Like people have explored every nook and cranny of these games. Like I briefly looked at the efficient leveling page on Oblivion, and it like there is like a maximum number of actions that you should take in a variety of skills in order to get like the maximum number of like skill points per upgrade. And I'm like, I don't need to do this. I don't need to focus on this. I'm just going to play with my messed up, janky character that has poor leveling, and like, I'm just going to make do, because that's what I find fun. And then like with Skyrim, if I feel compelled to play Oblivion again, I'm sure I will pull that page up and be like, all right, but let's really try to min-max this. What can I do? And like, I feel like the opportunity's there, but I don't need to do that right now. So, and that's the same thing with Fallout. Like you can do the same thing. Like there are guides where they're like, all right, you want to only level up these skills, and at this point you don't want to find any of the bobbleheads, and then you don't want to use any of this. I'm like, I don't care, it doesn't matter. Like, right
it's like almost ruining the experience of the game.
Yeah,
like the whole point of those games, for me at least, and I'm not a big open world gamer, player, whatever. Like probably the most sucked into one I've gotten is Breath of the Wild, and I didn't even see that game through. But like, you know, I enjoyed playing like Grand Theft Auto 3 back in the day. You know, like if you can call that an open world game, you know, by today's standards. But nonetheless, I kind of forgot what I was even going to say. But like, but like to me, like what really draws me, or like what I want to like about open world games is, that big like open sense of adventure in these huge expansive spaces. And that's why those like Bethesda games always tend to like, in theory, appeal to me, because I just know how huge they're supposed to be. And I think, like you said, with Oblivion, like the one thing that doesn't appeal to me about them, even Fallout 3 or whatever, like they're so drab and like brown and gray, and like I do like that luscious greenery. Like that is something that I do remember, and maybe I'm just like half thinking about it being on 360 and thinking about like the green box. But like, you know, I'm like thinking about it like being like more of this like living environment instead of this like decaying, like dead environment. And like, and that's how Breath of the Wild, even though it was like this apocalyptic, it was like starting to come back to life, you know, and there was like wildlife around, and like it just enough to like keep you, like make you feel like I'm in this living, breathing world instead of in this dying, decaying world that I'm not even trying to save necessarily. I don't know. I have no idea what the stories are in those games, but like I don't feel like your goal is to like we're bringing back the world. It's probably some dreary,
the stories are
somber,
or rough, buddy. Like Fallout, especially.
I was just gonna say, especially Fallout. Yeah,
man. Yeah, I was trying. I'm still. I think my little pit boy has a Jesus beard, halo, and robes. In terms of the karma that I've accrued, which joke's on you. That just means that I have mercenaries that drop really good armor that come after me all the time. So I keep killing them and keep getting refreshes on my armor. It's like, this rules. I don't have to do anything. But God, I don't even know what the point. Oh yeah, like. The weird thing about Elder Scrolls Online is that it kind of tries to do both, where it has like, it tries to do the same tone of the story, but it feels and looks like WoW. And like, that is just so, like, just the cleanest, crisp, vibrant textures.
Yeah, really vibrant is the first thing I think of.
And that's jarring. Like, especially like the first area that at least I've started playing in Elder Scrolls Online is like Solstheim, which is a Morrowind-like area in Skyrim, which has its own specific like set of like biomes. Like everything in that's one of the things that I like about Tamriel, the world in the Elder Scrolls, is that it has a lot of different countries and they all have their different like politics and biomes and enemies and whatnot, but like it felt like an uncanny version of this place that I had been to before, and I was like, I don't like this Disney ass version of this area. Like it feels weird, and like that turned me off it more than like anything, because like I really wanted to see like, oh, I don't know what Hammerfell looks like. I think this would be really cool to like see these cities that I've been to and see them like in a like the game looks great. Like there is so much detail and like really pretty like living areas, because it's an MMORPG, and like but even like walking around in Oblivion in a city, it's like, all right, there is 3 people walking around in this city and they have a very specific route, and like
and one blacksmith constantly hammering and like literally never stopping.
Oh my God. But here's another fun little tidbit about Oblivion, is that every shopkeeper gets pissed off at you if you don't buy something. So like if you like go into it, like their shop, and like don't buy anything, like the last thing you hear is just waste of my time. I was like, this rules. This is so good. I love.
That's amazing. That's like the guy at the record store by me. There's this one record store I went to, and I was like walking around. I think I even had something in my hand, and I was like, hey, I saw him and I knew he was the owner because I used to go there back in the day. I was like, hey, how's it going? He's like, it'd be better if you bought something.
Yeah.
I was like, Jesus, man. Okay.
Yeah, it's just an Oblivion NPC. Like,
oh, that's amazing.
Yeah,
but man, you got me. Obviously, I'm never gonna play one of these games, or at least I'm never gonna really like dig into it and beat one. But like, I do like. I'm always like, even like Assassin's Creed or like games like that, especially some of the newer ones like Origins and like
them.
Odyssey. I heard those like newer ones were really kind of like rejuvenated that series a little bit. Because I feel like going back, like maybe those games were innovative at the time. Like even it's cool to hear that going back to.
I love playing the cutting edge genre of
the time.
Era.
Yeah. It's like
so
a time
fun.
capsule. Yeah, even going back to Oblivion, it's kind of like, not that was cutting edge per se, but it was definitely, especially for it to be on a console.
Yeah.
I think that was like kind of important. Like, and not important is not the right word, maybe because I just listened to a podcast talking about it around the time it came out. But like, I think that did like kind of bridge a gap a little bit between like those type of games, and like I feel like those games were like PC games before, and now like they're very popular on at whatever platform you play them on,
And I think that was
that's cool.
A thing that I talked about maybe like just when we were gaming over the holidays with our group of friends, where I was like, I really do think that like the Elder Scrolls Skyrim has just the most elegant like PC to controller like menu system where it is like a radial tree of you, like you press the B button or whatever the A button on a Xbox controller, or I think that's circle on PlayStation. But you press,
I think it's X. Yeah,
you press the right button, and it will open up a like north, south, left, right, or up, down, left, right, like kind of compass that you then hit up in one direction, and that leads you to another like 4-directional tree that like gets you into a sub menu, and it's like a really quick, and like this is kind of what I think maybe also helped me with like the like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, like the way that they do like these systems, and like even Stardew Valley, and like we were talking earlier.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. Yep.
Like Fields of Mystria, the way that like PC game, like predominantly PC games, try to make that like gap or bridge that gap for consoles is like, how do you make a complex menu system navigable? And I think we've even kind of hinted at it with like Team Ladybug stuff, but like Drainus definitely feels like they fit, like Team Ladybug figured out menus for the first time, and like it's difficult to play Record of the Lodos War in particular, but we'll save that for another topic or another day of discussion.
Yeah, no, that's, and even to be fair with Drainus, as much as like how slick the menus are, it's still like, man, they could have probably broken these up into like different categories instead of just having this one long scrolling list of all your abilities that you can unlock. With,
that
like,
you have to scroll to the bottom to edit. Yes.
Yeah, I guess they like keep them in categories, but like you have to just go to the bottom. Yeah, of like 50 different things. It's crazy.
Yeah. And like the tab system in Oblivion is like still kind of hard to navigate, and like, yeah, like that is something that is like, like Skyrim is just leaps and bounds ahead of it on that, but like did kind of round off some of the edges of like other mechanics that were more like gameplay heavy that I much preferred in Oblivion. So I think I may have edged Oblivion out over Skyrim as my favorite Elder Scrolls game, which is kind of bonkers because I played like 400 hours plus of Skyrim and I've barely played Oblivion, but the stuff it does right is just like, yeah, this is the parts that I really liked, and I'm glad that I have a game that delves into those parts deeper.
Yeah, and that's awesome that you can go back to the previous game and have an equal, if not greater, appreciation for it, So that's just cool.
And I'm hoping that once I have learned a little bit more of this, then I can go back to Morrowind and say that that's my favorite.
Just keep walking backwards, yeah.
Oh, because I really want to play the older Fallout games too. Like I heard, like Fallout 2 is supposed to be like an incredible.
Yeah, people love that game. Or at least there's like a diehard like fan base around it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Heck yeah. You got me curious. Like I said, I know I'll never really play one of these. I'll probably end up, if anything, watching you play some of these over there, next time I'm in Chicago or something. But because I've definitely watched you play your fair share of Skyrim on Switch while hanging out at your apartment and stuff. Yeah.
I'd gladly have an NPC yell at me and be mad at the choices I'm making in front of you.
Heck yeah. Well, anything else before we wrap things up for the evening here?
Not this week.
All right, nice. Well, yeah, as always, you can find us on the internet at pursuingpixels.com. And like we were kind of teasing, we'll be back soon to talk some Team Ladybug and some other video game action with Randall. I tabled a little Marble It Up for later as well. That's actually one of the games I've been diving into a decent amount. So apart from just grazing on the other stuff I was talking about earlier, but yeah, anyways, we'll catch you next week. And until then, take care.
Bye. I'm going to be playing it for a while, I think. It's like Fields of Mystria.
Oh, yeah. Like, I saw you in the Discord just talking about that.
And it's
I'm catching up.
It's pretty much the same stuff that I've been saying in the Discord, where it's like all the changes that, or like quote unquote improvements they made to Stardew Valley was on things that like I didn't necessarily think needed improving or like expanding on. And like all the things that like I thought, oh, this would be really nice if it was improved or removed from the game or done differently, and like all of those are untouched. And then there are like certain changes that were made that are actively worse. Like the like item select bar is worse. And I was like, how?
Which it already isn't great. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's
at least
the thing,
playing on
like,
a controller, especially.
It seems impossible for this to be worse. And yet you somehow managed to do that. And it's like,
yeah, that's a shame.
It's so wild because like, other than that, like it's really pretty. It like looks nice. It looks a lot like Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past.
Okay.
Like that level of graphics, which like, I don't necessarily see as an improvement. Like, I kind of like Stardew Valley's aesthetic because it is kind of a weird.
It's like 16-bit, but like kind of janky and like almost 8-bit. It's like kind of weird. Yeah.